All right, so welcome to our Capstone project. So this project, we're just going to be building it straightforward. We're not going to be breaking this video down into other sections. So in this Capstone project, the ATM machine project, we're going to be combining everything we've learned about Java and what we haven't learned about Java. So we're going to be doing um, reading from a file with Java, writing to a file with Java, and we're also going to be talking about error handling, which is using your try, catch, and so many other functions or methods out there to catch errors. So to get started, just head over to IntelliJ or whatever IDE you are using, but I suggest you use IntelliJ IDE. Now, if you are in your IDE, okay, we want to create a new project. Click on New Project. All right, so inside our this is our file, so we need to start working. So what do we need to do? First of all, let's put a comment at the top. Oops, let me remove everything right here. We don't need it. So let's put a comment at the top saying main.java. This is going to be our entry point to launch the login screen. So what do I mean by this? I mean, we're going to be using OOP, which is object-oriented programming. So instead of building everything in a single file, like having so many codes in one file, we would be breaking down each code into smaller modular parts. So I'll show you what I mean. So first of all, the main is going to be our general file. Why should it be? Remember, in our earlier lessons, we talked about having a static method. So the static method is where the Java starts from. So the main usually carries the static method void, okay? Because no other object is required to explain this method. So this is our starting method. It's like permanent, okay? This is where Java starts from. If you go into another folder and you put something with that static, it won't run, okay? So now, since we already know that, we want to create the login screen. But how do we do that? First of all, let's go into here in our source. We want to create a new want to create a new file called login screen. Now in this file, we're going to be you can see how I name my files. I just call them the name and hit on enter. Why? Because IntelliJ has already selected the classes for you. So if you're creating a Java, it ends in .java. If you're creating Kotlin, it ends in it. Whatever you're creating in IntelliJ ends in whatever you clicked on. Okay, so you don't need to stress yourself to say login.java. So we need so many classes to make this. First of all, to be using to run GUIs on Java, we need to import some things. But first of all, let's see what is this. So this is your login screen.java. Okay. Now this is going to handle the login window. Okay, so I'm just showing you how you could break down your huge complex code into smaller parts so that it becomes easy for you to just start coding immediately. So now we're going to do some import statements, and we're going to import the swing class from Java. We're going to import the Java AWT class. We're going to import the Java 8 AWT event action event. Then action listener. So what does this does? What does this do? Sorry, what does this do? This actually creates an action event when you click on a button. So either you want it to listen on your click or to create an event like what will happen when you click on a button. So notice we're using the star. This star means from this swing class, import everything on that swing. Okay, that's the meaning of that asterisk. So next up, let's run a a class from the JFrame. So remember I told you using extend keyword can help us modify a parent class, which is inheritance. So we're going to extend the JFrame class from the swing. Okay, so when we extend it, it means we want to use the JFrame class from the swing class. That is why we're using extends inheritance. Okay, so you're saying everything is coming together now. So now we're declaring the login screen as a method. Notice it's public, it's not returning any int, it's not returning float or boolean, and it's not void because it's returning the login screen back. But notice we're not dealing with numbers, we're not dealing with strings or something like that. We're dealing with logic. Okay, that's why it's not carrying anything right here. So now the first thing we want to do in your jQuery, sorry, in your JFrame, we have so many things to work with in JFrame. So give me a minute, let me open my JFrame documentation. Okay, so anytime we want to work with what we call libraries, so this JFrame is from the Java's.swing library. Okay, so in this episode 2, I'm still teaching you how to work with a library. So whenever you want to work with a library, just look for the name of the library. In this case, we're looking for the Java library called Javax. Okay, sorry, JFrame. It's called a class JFrame. So how did I get here? If you know the name of the class you are looking for, then all you need to do is just type something like, since I'm looking for JFrame, just type JFrame and docs. This will take you straight to the first recommended uh link. Usually takes us straight to what we're looking for. Okay, so now in under JFrame, okay, don't want to open too many tabs. So under JFrame, we have the you can see that it's under the swing class. Okay, so we have the image observer, the menu container, this serializable, accessible, root pane container, and Windows container, which is all implemented interfaces. So we have the class name JFrame, it extends frame, then it implements all this stuff. So how do we work with it? We have some of the nested classes right here, and how to work with some window dot whatever, and we have so many things. So if you go through the entire documentations here on everything you can see here, you would see how you can be able to work with JFrame to build what we're going to build now. So since I've gone through this documentation and I've understood what I need to understand, all I need to do now is to head back to IntelliJ and complete the ATM um, code. So you can follow along with me. If I remember some of them that I could show you here, I would come back to make sure I show you. Okay, but to save time, let's go back to IntelliJ. So in the IntelliJ IDE, we're going to use um one keyword called set title. And notice if you're using IntelliJ, you get everything directly from them suggested to you, like you can see. Now this collects a keyword. You can call this let's say, and call this whatever you want. Okay, so I'm using what I want to call it now, so use yours, don't use mine. Jite's bank, then let's use pipe, then let's say login. Okay, so you can use pipe or you could use this sign. Okay, I just want to use pipe so that it will looks more mature. Now next is another entry word, set default close operation. What does this mean? This means you are going to see a close button at the edge of the screen. So the default close operation when you click is jframe.exit.close. Okay. Now this is also part of the frame docs. So this is popular for closing your windows. Next up is the set size. So we want to set the size of our window. Okay. So we set the size and let's say, okay, you see, IntelliJ has brought it out. So we have the width and the height. So we're going to take the width to 400 and the height, that's of our login screen, to 300. I'm going to show you how that plays out in a bit of a second. Then we are setting location relative to where, meaning where do we want this screen to pop out from? Do we want it to pop out close to the edge? If you set it at null, it means it's going to be at the center. Okay, I'll show you what I mean. The next is the layout. So the same thing, we're going to set the layout to not null but new border layout. Okay, now this border layout is going to be, sorry, I thought there was an error there. Let's run this code first of all. Okay, sorry, I was supposed to run from main. So let's call the login screen in our main.java new login screen. Okay, so this is kind of similar to creating an application using Flutter. So what we do now is almost the same as using as what you do using Flutter. Okay, so nothing came up for now. Let's continue. Let's put some title labels. So we haven't set visibility to true, so nothing actually came up. So let's just finish this and we set everything up. title title label. So this is where we use the title we label each title, I mean, for the buttons. So we have the j label, j pan label, sorry. Then we're going to call title, let's say label. Now what does this mean? This is another method, JLabel, okay, or class, sorry, the JLabel class. Now I want to create a variable from the class. All right, so from the JLabel class, I taught you how to work with classes, create objects from classes. So that's what we're doing in a much bigger scale. Now I want to greet the person saying welcome to Jite's bank. Okay, that's it. Then after this, we want to add something else. We want to add the j label dot center. What does this mean? It's like your CSS. Okay, the only difference is we do not write CSS styles, they are already predefined. So what I just say now is, okay, j label, there's a class of center, there's a class of left, there's a class of right. So what I want is center. Notice it is all caps. So if you write C in caps and ENT, it's not going to work. Those are reserved words. So the next thing we need to do is say title.label. Now we've created an object from the J label. So now all we need to start using is this title label. So now we take it to get something from the J label class. And what we want to get now for the J label class is the set layout. So After accessing the set layout, we want to say, set font, because it's a label. So layout is for designs, okay. So we set the font now. We're using Arial as our font.bold, and our size will be 22, font size. See, we have the name of the font, then the boldness and the size. Next up, we want to set something. We want to say add title, label, then border layout dot not. What does this mean? We mean title, supposed to be title, okay, label, okay. All right, so this means we're adding this to the function today, to this class, sorry. So we're calling on this title label and this. So we're just using it to create the screen for now, okay. Just have that in mind. The next thing is we want to create our center panels, and this means those the UI we're going to be seeing, okay. So now we want to centralize it. Let's go jpanel dot jpanel, sorry, everything is case sensitive. Then we're calling on the jpanel class this time. Then we're creating an object of jpanel. So after calling the object, notice this class doesn't have constructors, so you don't have to paste anything in the middle. So all you have to say is center panel, sorry. I was supposed to call this center panel, but it suggested that for me. Okay, dot. So we're accessing a class now. The class we're accessing is set layout. All right. Now we want to say set new grid box or grid layout. New grid layout is 3, 2, 10, 10. So don't worry about all this. I've tested this before. That is why I'm able to write this out just this way. So if I haven't tested it before, I will just keep running my code and seeing the design, okay, till it suits me. So just for everything to go faster, that is why I'm just doing all this. So center panel dot set background color, or no, I'm using border, set border. Oops, I clicked on, okay, set border. Now the border is going to be border factory dot create empty border, okay. So create empty, not line border. I'm using an empty border. So this is like doing styles in your CSS, okay. So unlike CSS where we declare the code, but this, everything is inbuilt, everything works as you go. All right, so it's the same with Python, everything works as you go. Unlike JavaScript where you have to set CSS, all these ones do not require you to set any CSS. You just keep feeding the functions and they start giving you what you want. So we are done with the center panels. Now let's go with the username panel. Username, label, and fields. So this place is where we're going to get the label and field. So now we're still going to be using the center panel dot I will stop taking this automatic dot add. Then what are we going to add now? There is a function on that center panel called add. That is why you're also seeing add here. So each of them have that add function for you to, measure what you're doing to compose the UI. So dot add new G label, and we're going to call it username. Fine. So now we're coming back to this JLabel add function, and we're putting a new JLabel, which is a new where did I create the object? Okay, new J label like this. I would put in text. So the same object we're creating here using the center panel, which is inside the center panel. That's what we're creating this. Now this is going to be the panel, the label on top for the username input or by the side. Okay, all right. Next we have the next input is the next line of code is jtext feed, which is this. Then we have the after calling the jtext feed, we can say username. Then we say username field, which is the name of our variable. Notice when creating objects, this is the class. This is the name of your variable. You are storing the object of this class too. So that is what I'm doing. I'm just explaining all this to make sure we are good. Okay, nobody is lagging behind. So after calling the object again without no parameter, because it doesn't require any parameter. So for you to know if a function requires a parameter, let's go back to the documentation. Okay, so in our docs, you would see um you see, okay, this function sets default close operation. This requires a parameter, you send int. Also, Windows does closing, this requires a parameter. So some of them are like this: add imp, which is, and you also see the modifier type, which is that it is a protected void, and you see the parameters inside here. And all these ones, they don't have parameters, they don't have parameters, they don't have parameters, they don't have parameters. So anyone you are using, you look for what it does. Now this one, you see, adds a specific child component. Then this one creates root pane, called by the constructor method to create default root pane. So each and everything processes window event occurring on the component, returns a representation of this JFrame. So everything sets the menu bar for this frame. Everything has a use, everything has a function. Now if you keep clicking, you would see where was I was somewhere here. Okay, you see static methods, you see instant methods, like all this. You see they have set icon image, you have set class pane, and everything has parameters. So the one that doesn't have a parameter, you don't have to put a parameter. Now concrete methods include all this. And if you read down to now, note, if you can't read this entire documentation, you can also use ChatGPT to explain everything you see here. All you can do, if you have a PC that could summarize a page, that is fine. But if you don't have, you can just copy what you see step by step by step. Copy, copy, copy. But if you copy a lot of things, it won't allow you. There's an AI that allows you to copy as much as you like, and it's called Monica. Let me just give you that props. So it is called Monica, and it's found in monica.im. So if you enter into monica.im and you copy everything in this page and you paste, the page is still loading, and you paste to Monica and say explain this, Monica will take some time and give you what you want. Okay, the prompts. So why Monica loads, let's, okay, please check your network. I think my network has just gone. So while we wait for the internet connection to come back, let's just continue. Okay, so while waiting for the internet connection, let's go on. Center panel dot add username. Okay, I've actually forgotten where I am. Username, okay, user field, okay, okay. So we've added this now. So we're done with the username label. Now let's go into the password area. So password and label and password label and field. Okay, so this is where we're going to we're putting everything concerning the password. Now notice this was the username field found in the JText field class. I'm going to repeat the same thing. So all I can do now is just copy. Okay, but notice we're going to change some things. We're going to change here to password. We're going to change here to password. So it's no longer a text field, but a password. I'm going to show you why we use password, because text fields, they don't hash your password. They just make it visible for everybody to see. But using password fields helps us to hash our password, so it's not visible when you're typing. All right, that's just a simple explanation. Using CSS, we achieve that, but in Java, you don't use any CSS. You just do a straight coding. Now, next is, okay, we need to add this, which is now the password field. So we're adding it to our center panel. All right, so I think we need just one thing, which is another empty, sorry, pty. Let me see if my network is restored. Let's just forget about that for now. Okay, it's back. So let me see if, okay, so you see, no matter the length of that page, no matter how lengthy the page is, Monica is able to summarize everything for you. Okay, so this is one among the best AIs among, and a lot of people do not actually know about Monica. So in Monica, you can access DeepSeek version 3, DeepSeek R1, and Grok 3, okay, from Monica. Now you can see that this is a summary from the JFrame. It defines the JFrame for you. It's a part of the Java foundational classes and extends the frame from the AWT abstract window toolkit. So it's used to create a window where you can add both components like buttons, text fields, and GUI elements. So now you have the root pane, the Java, which contains a JRoot pane that manages the content panes and optional menu bar. Then we have the content pane is where, or panel, that is what I'm doing now, where I'm adding the username and buttons. So the content pane is where all non-menu components are added. You can manipulate it by using the add, the remove, and the set layout. Now, if you notice, that is what we're doing right now. But we're doing the add, and we're not doing any more remove, and we're doing the set layout. Okay, so this is how you can easily go through a documentation without stressing yourself. Now you can see we have the construct, and this is the JFrame class. This constructs a new initially invisible frame. So remember when I run the frame initially, I didn't see anything, but the frame was there, but it's invisible. You know, I told you later on we're going to set visibility to true. Now we can give a title, then we can give graphic configuration, then we can also give string and graphic configuration. Now these are the important methods: the add method, the set method, the set default operation, which was what we did for our close button, set default operation to java.close, sorry, JFrame exit on close. All right, so I think this is just a way of showing you how you can go through a documentation without reading everything. So since Monica already knows about the documentation now, you can ask anything. How do I set a frame? Do I set a frame? So this becomes very easy for you to use ChatGPT or Monica, or if you use ChatGPT will not be able to go through that entire code for you because it will be very difficult. ChatGPT doesn't accept more than, I think, 100 words or so. So you can see Monica has given you what you need to do, and this is it: frame dot whatever dot whatever dot whatever. So with this, you can build any project you want to build, and ensure that please you understand what you're copying. Do not just copy codes. All right, so let's go back to our IntelliJ. So after that lengthy explanation, I'm not going back to the documentation anymore so that we can do this fast. So we're still under the panels where we're creating UIs or GUIs or GUI. Empty label for setting. Sorry, for spacing. So you're going to see why I'm creating this empty label for space and for spacing. Center panel dot okay, center panel dot add, and we're going to just leave it empty because I said empty panel for spacing. So unlike your CSS, when you're able to just put a new div, your HTML, a new div or an empty div, or CSS, you can give margin. Here we just put, instead of divs, we use an empty add or an empty panel. All right, so next is designing the login button. Okay, so since everything is almost the same, I'm just going to copy and paste to make this faster. All right, so what did I copy? I copied the J option just log we made another J button. This is called, so to create buttons we use the J buttons. Now notice, to create text we use the J panel. Sorry, to create a panel view we use the J panel. Now to create a text we use the J label. Okay, now to create feeds we use the J text field. To create password, J password field. To create buttons, J button. Okay, so that is just most of the things I want you to know. Now at the end, we now add the center panel and we give the border layout to center. So meaning we're adding the center panel now to our main J frame. Where is it? Yeah, our main J frame, J frame, yes. So we're adding it down and we're saying this is the center panel and it should be in the center. So next is to add the login action. So let's go login action. So what is this? The login action is a function for us to get the login. Now you can see my AI has already suggested. So let's just go with it. So now what are we doing? The login button, which is this login button here, we're adding an action listener, which is this. That was why we imported the action listener. So now we're adding an action listener and we're saying new object of the action listener class. There's a reason why I'm always repeating this thing, so that you can be able to understand it and you can speak it in English, not just write in code. Let it not be something you cram, but something you understand. So now this function is going to be void. Once again, why do you think I'm using void? If you know, comment in the comment section. So I'm using void because this function is not returning anything. Chikina. So this is it. Now we're saying this is the name of the method, not function, sorry. Now inside here, we're putting in two parameters. This parameter is by default, this E. It's to help us to prevent submission by default or loading. When you click a login button, there's something that happens. It's kind of creates a kind of bug, or I don't know. So it's called, like, it just creates a white screen during the loading time. So what we do is we use this E. It's called event. So in JavaScript, you still know, if you have done JavaScript before, you can say E is the event to be processed, why this action event is just the class. If you have done JavaScript before, you know how to prevent e.default when submitting your form. So that when you just submit, when you're writing a form, not when the person just click enter and the form just submits itself. So the person has to actually go there. I don't know. Don't worry, you understand these things as time goes on. So now we're going to create a string class, and we're going to using okay, normal variable. Okay, so we're creating the string to username and we're getting the username text field. Now notice, when we're submitting this form, if you have worked with React before, you get something like this, or JavaScript. So when we created this input or PA, so this is a text field. So now in JavaScript, when you want to try to get the text written in the text field, you say get text. Okay, the same thing with Java. So now we call this since the method, the text was already stored in this variable, we now call this variable and call dot get text. Now the same thing for the password, but this time we're making the password into a string since it doesn't have a variable type, it's just a password. So we're making it into a string. Same thing right? Just trying to explain everything as fast as possible. So let's keep copying the code so that I can have more time to explain. Now, the next line of code is this. Okay, so this is if the username is empty and or sorry, not and or the password. I told you double pipes when we're doing operations in Java. Double pipes means or. So or the password if the username sorry is empty or the password is empty. That was what this means. So username dot is empty, password dot is empty. So most of these classes are still in your Flutter when creating Android. So learning Java is actually a big plus to Kotlin or Flutter developers. Now, if the password is empty, we say j option dot show message dialog. This is in your show message dialog is in your Flutter. So j option pane, which is this entire pane window, dot show message dialog, please fill all fields. Okay, that's just a simple pop-up error message. And j option pane is gotten from your swing class. All right, next else we're going to create a new file called user account, then give it user and say user dot load username. So this is going to create this whole thing. If user is equal to null, creates user if it doesn't exist, and this actually does and create a new user using the username and password. So this is a new class, object from a class, and then we save the user using the save user. Then we also create a message dialog saying new account created. Else, check the password. If use not user dot get password dot equals password, j option pane incorrect password, return, and then we just close the login and we open the dashboard. But for now, let's create the let's create the let's do something else. We're supposed to add another line of code just below here. The line of code is set visible. Set visible to true. But note, this won't work now because we have so many errors to fix. So let's fix the errors. One of the first way to fix the error is to create this new class, the Java class. I'm sorry, the dashboard class. Oops, sorry. I was to click on Java. Okay, so we're creating dashboard dot Java. Now this dashboard is going to carry the oops, going to carry the dashboard dot Java code, and it's going to handle the ATM dashboard UI. Right, so for now we're not going to code anything. We'll just put the public whatever, so we stop getting this error from here. So we're still getting the error of user because there is a class in dashboard that carries user. So now let's go in again and create another file called the user account. Okay, I think that's what is bringing the major error here. So let's create user account. Why are we calling this the user account file? Now if I go back to the login screen, okay, some of the errors are gone because the user account is already there. But now, okay, so since we've made the login screen, let's go to the user account.java. So this is going to represent the user data. All right, so we're going to use this page to control the login. So basically, we're going to take the username, the password, and the balance from here. All right. So let's see. We're going to take the this sorry, we're going to take this username. Where is it? Um, this username and this password from here. So now let's go. We're going to make this private. Why? Okay, we're going to make it private because it's going to be accessible only by only when we need it, or we'll call this function. All right, so it's not going to be public. It's what we call encapsulation. Okay, then private, another string, which is the data type, then followed by what we're getting, which is the password, and another string, which is going to be for the double. All right, let's go. Private string, and sorry, it's going to be for the double keyword, and it's going to set the balance. All right, so now we've got the three things. What are we going to do? So the first thing is we want to have a user account, and immediately the user logs in, we want to say that this user, the logged in user, is equal to the username, and the logged in, the password is equal to the password. Then the balance, we're initializing it at 0.0. So how do we achieve this? We achieve this using a constructor. You see what I mean? So we're to assign the user to this username, we're to assign this login user to this username, we're to assign this login user's password to this password using a constructor. So here's how it goes. We say public. Okay, so this was suggested, and okay, so once again, we're assigning this username to this file, and we're assigning this password to this file. So we're going to use this constructor. Note, constructors don't have a data type, so just the name and the name of your constructor. All right, so now we're binding this dot username to our username, we're binding this dot password to our password, and we're binding this dot balance to not balance, but we're going to set a balance. All right, so what have we done here? We've created a constructor that is going to take in that is going to pass in the username and password from the logged in screen, which is what you've seen here. So the constructor of user account. Now initially we've passed in the username and password parameter from here, and now we're going to collect it from here, which is what we've just did here. And now we're setting the balance to this. All right, so next up is we want to use what we call getters. Now what are getters? Getters are what we use to get values from a field. Okay, now if you notice, we had this field, this string field, and this for username. Now if you notice, these two, when a user types in them, there's a text. So we're going to use getters to get those texts. Now see, we use string for the username to return the username. The next up, we use for the password, we return password because the password is also a string. Now next, we use double for the balance. Now these are all methods, they are not constructors. That is why you can see a data type, and note they are returning a value. This is returning a text, that's why we have string here. This is returning also a text, that is why we have string here. Now this is returning something numbers. Okay, now note, if it's a whole number, would have int here, but since it's going to return the balance in point or decimal places, then we use the double in this method. Now we are going to create one last method, and we're going to call it the deposit method. So what would this do? This would set the balance. So let's go public void deposit, and this is going to take the amount in double. So now note, when the user is logged in, like we've seen above, we have to, maybe the user wants to click on um top up balance. Okay, so that is the function we're writing right now. So how do we do this? We just set the balance of the user to be equal to the amount. So writing like this is the same as writing balance equals okay, equals balance plus amount. Okay, it's the same thing as writing like this, but it is important for us not to repeat ourselves twice. So instead of going through this long process, we just say plus equal to amount. Okay, see how short and simple this is. So it's the same thing as the initial one you saw before, right? So now we will need to define one last method in this file, which is the withdraw or the withdraw method. So in this method, we're going to also do the same thing, but note we're not going to return boolean this time. We're going to return something different. So let's return um okay, sorry, we're not going to return double. Okay, no, now note, this is returning it's saying void because there is no return keyword. Okay, so if you notice, we're just adding whatever amount was given to the user to this our amount, um this sorry, we're adding whatever amount the user imputed to our initial balance, which is this one, which we set to 0.0. Okay, so if the user has 1,000 here, this becomes 1,000 00. Okay, so that's for that. Now let's do the withdraw method. So public boolean for withdraw. Now we now have to check for a condition. Note, we have to check if the balance is greater or equal to the amount. If the balance is greater than the amount the user is trying to withdraw, then we can debit the account, but else false, meaning you can't withdraw what you don't have. Okay, so let's go. So if the balance is greater or equal, why are we doing saying equal? So if you have $500 in your account and you want to withdraw the 500, it should allow you to withdraw it. So if we say just greater than, then it means if we have $500 and you are trying to withdraw 500, it returns false because 500 is equal to 500 and 500 is not greater than 500, is they're equal. So but if that will lead to a bug. But if you want your code to not allow the user withdraw everything in the account, so you can write it like that, so at least there will be something in the account. All right, so that's that. Now you can say within here that you want to debit, so it's like saying balance minus amount, so minus equal balance. Okay, else want to say return, okay, sorry, in here I want to say return true, want to say return true, and want to say return false here, right? So we've declared all the methods for the user's account. So like I said, this is for the user's data. So now let's go to another file. Now this file is where we're going to manage and load user data, sorry. So we're going to manage and load users data. So note, this file, we use this file to get the user's data, right? So we use to get the data on logging in. We also use it to set the function for deposit, sorry, the method for deposit, the method for withdrawal. So this basically handles users data. Now this handles the saving and loading. So by the time you log in, by the time you put your username and password, this everything gets sent to this user data manager. Okay, now you see we call a function dot save user to, we're saving this user that was created from here. Okay, so this user data is going to be what loads our data. So let's see. Now we're going to say the first thing we want to do is to import java.io and we're importing everything from java.io. It's just a library in Java so that we can be able to read files. So we say private private let's say static, because okay, not this, then final. All right, so what we're going to say is string, and we're going to call it user. Let's make it so, like I said before, if a function is final, it means it's constant and it doesn't change. Now note, for constant, we can always use all caps, so we remember that this doesn't change. Okay, it's constant. So why am I using this? I'm using this to declare the directory to which we're going to save this txt file we're going to create when we register users. So we're going to call it users. That's all. So we've successfully created a simple line of code. Again, this code is private. It's not opened to our entire code. So I can't come here and access whatever is there. Okay. Now, it is static. It is constant. That is why, and it's a string. Okay. That is why we have this in all caps. So this means the user directory. So where are we saving this txt file? If you see, we have source right here. We have source right here. Now if you see, there's another file called, another folder called users. It was created by this user data manager. Okay, so that's what you're seeing there. So now let's go. We're going to save, sorry, we're going to save user to the file, right? So what are we going to do now? We're going to make another public function. Turn up my keyboard brightness. Okay, so we're going to make a public function. We're going to call it static method void, meaning it belongs to this class. Now we're going to say save user. All right, so what is going to be happening here? I'm going to say user account as user. Okay, so what is this method doing? This method is going to return nothing. It belongs to this class, and it's going to save the user by taking a parameter from our user account, which is all this stuff here. Okay, this is going to be passed here, so it uses it to save a new user. All right, so we're going to put a try catch. This is called error handling. So when reading a file, it's always necessary you handle error in case the file doesn't get created, or your PC can't read from the file, so your code doesn't break. Instead, you get an error. So dir is going to be new file for the user dir. Dir means directory. All right, so next is we're going to check if the directory exists. Okay, so this is just a method in Java dot exist to know if it exists. If it doesn't exist, then we're going to make the directory. This is actually a command line keyword. If you're used to the Linux interface, mkdir means make directory. So we're saying our file, which is actually coming from the file class under IO. So this is an object of the file class. We just created an object and we gave the name dir, which means directory. You can call that anything you want. So by now you should know how to create objects if you actually went through the entire tutorial. Okay, so now we're checking if a special method saying with this special method dot exist. Okay, so we're saying if not this directory named users, if it doesn't exist, then the computer should make a directory. Else, we're not going to write else, we're just going to write what we want to do. So there's another function called object output stream. Now I want to output what? I want to output want to create another object, sorry, from the object output stream class, and it has parameters, so we're going to call new file output stream. So inside here we're going to pass in the user directory, which is initial um our initial users here. Then we're going to add a forward slash. Now we're still going on, we'll still add a user, sorry, small letters, user dot get username plus, I'm going to explain what this means, so just type along with me. That's right. So what does this actually do? So this actually does something really simple. So what does this do? It goes in to the object output stream class. Then we said we want to create, we gave it a name out, and we want to create a new object output stream. Now we're calling the new keyword for another class, which is file output stream. Now we're passing in the name of our directory. So we're telling this system now to go into the user's directory. After we've checked if it exists or not, that is, if it doesn't exist, it should be created. So we're going into the user's directory, and if you notice this forward slash, it means for the computer to create under the user's directory. That's the meaning of this forward slash. We want to create a file with the current user that is logging in. So we're creating, that's why you see the get username, which is from here. So we're getting the user's username, and we're adding dot stat. So if you see here, you can see my name followed by the dot stat. Not a txt, it's actually a dat file. All right, so now we want to output it. So this out here, which is the name of just the name, we're going to say out dot write object. I'm going to pass in the parameter user. Then next we're going to say out dot close. So even in JavaScript, when you are reading from a file, you always should ensure that you close it. If not, it's just going to keep sending packets of data without you knowing. So now we want to catch the IO exception, and notice the error has disappeared because you can't have a try block without a catch. So we just want to print to the console the errors. So next up is that's the first one, to save the user to file. So if the user entering his login details has not logged in before, then those details are being saved to our file. Then else, if the user wants to has logged in before and want to log the user in, we read the user's file from the DATS and from the DAT file, and we give the user, or we allow the user to the ATM machine. So now we say load user from file. Right, so public static user account. So we're going to use the word load user, and we're going to pass in some strings, and we're going to pass in the username because that is what we actually need to load the user. All right, so now let's say try. If you want to use password, also you could use password. So we're going to read the user's username by using the same object.output.string. So what does this mean? This means we're going to be reading the file. It's just a class in JavaScript for reading file in a stream pattern, meaning it's going to take the file step by step. It's going to read it the way you stream. You get packets of data. That is how it's going to read the file. So dot in new. So the same thing, we're creating an object of the object dot stream input stream class, and again we're creating another object of the file. So don't worry, you get used to this if you do this regularly. And we say user, we're passing again the same user directory. So instead of doing this all over again and repeating myself, I will just copy the code and I'll paste to save time. Okay, so for a minute my system wasn't recording. All right, so sorry about that. So this is what I was talking about. All right, so now after getting this again, we'll copy this because it's basically the same thing. There is no much difference. I'll close. All right, the only thing here is that we're going to be doing something different. We're not going to be doing this. We're going to say user account, which is from, you know, the class user account, and we're going to say is equal to user account, then in read object object. That's all. In read dot object, okay, in dot read object, sorry. Then we're going to say in dot close. Okay, so this is in. All right, so I copied this before, so that was out to then this is in to load from the file. So this is to write to the file and this is to load from the file. So that's why here it's called in. Then there's still an error which is coming from the catch block. Okay, catch block error is the IO exception. Then we're going to say this is called a pipe. IO exception, it means plus or let's just say or the class not found exception. So any of them that is caught should be relayed to the console as return null. Okay, so either you get this sorry, this is showing an error. Okay, so the red is out. So after you get it, so if you get this IO exception or class not found, just return null. So all right, that is all for the user management dot java file. So once again, we saved the user to a folder called users. So if the users folder doesn't exist, then the system automatically makes the directory, and else if it exists, it actually gets written in streams like the way you stream a movie. So it gets written in packet by packet of data. Okay, so piece by piece. All right, so it doesn't just go once. All right, so else if it doesn't work, catch the error and we print whatever error we see so we can work on it. Right, so next is if the user has already been saved, then we load the user from the file by using the same outstream, the same method, the same way of creating object. Check in using the user account to read the object, read objects. Then after doing that, um we close the reading and then we handle the errors. Okay, all right, so there's a bit of an error here. That is what I'm trying to look for, and I can't see where this error is coming from. Okay, user dot. Okay, 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 so yeah, it's supposed to be username. Okay, because I passed in user here and I copied this, so it's supposed to be username dot get. Sorry, we're not getting any name. Okay, so that is why you don't copy code without actually checking what you copied. So I just copied this initial one and I forgot I wasn't supposed to get the name since we're reading the file, so we're not getting the name of the file. Okay, so we're reading from there, and we're reading the file based on the username provided. Okay, so if maybe Sam creates a file, we read the username. If the person logging in, his name is Sam, then we use Sam to find sam.stat. Okay, so we're creating a separate file for each person with its own name to avoid reading one whole file. So next is this other error. I'm trying to trace where it's coming from, but I can't find it right now. So it says cannot resolve read object in object.output.stream. Okay, so user in output.stream in. So no. All right. Okay, let's see. Okay, so the error is gone. Okay. Okay, so we're supposed to return user here. Okay, so now we're going to the final part, which is the dashboard. Okay, so this dashboard you can achieve it using your J panel. Okay, so you can use either the J panel, or you can decide to build this whole thing with your using reading the documentation on J panel, and you have to deal with events and also just everything about the AWT class. Okay, so we're going to build the dashboard, but we're going to paste the code for the dashboard because it is really long. Okay, so this is for the dashboard. Now this dashboard part has the UI. Okay, so this UI you can get it using, once again, the JPanel. If you're using an IDE called NetBeans, it allows you to create a JPanel, which you cannot do here. Okay, so NetBeans allows you to create this dashboard using JPanel, just placing each and every one of these designs. So I would show you how you can achieve that in NetBeans. Okay, so this is NetBeans. So if you want to, you just need to open a new file and you can click on new. You can say J. Okay, so what we're creating is the J panel form. Okay, so this is how you use NetBeans, and you create a new J panel form. If you have a folder, maybe you want to create the ATM, that is the UI for the login, you can just create a folder and call it ATM. And okay, under here you can now create the first JPanel form and call it login page for the ATM. Okay, login page. Please make sure they're together. Okay, so after doing this, you wait for it to load, and here you go. You have your first panel. So you drag and drop the panel to wherever suits you, whatever design you see fit. Now notice we're using these tools right here. So the first two I brought out is my panel 2. So this allows me to set a viewport where I could change the background color to whatever I like or whatever I want. So I could change it to maybe blue or pure white or even gray or whatever color. Okay, so I'm just going to be using pure white, right? So now for our login panel, we want to have something, say text field, okay, because we're going to take in the user's login details. We're going to have a text field here, and we're going to have another text field here. Okay, okay, right. So let's say we this is our login and password, so we need a label for it so the user knows what he's doing. And we need another label for this. Okay, so if you do not know how to use NetBeans, you can look up for a tutorial on how to use NetBeans, but it's basically very easy once you haven't installed. Before you install NetBeans, ensure to go to netbeans.com, search for the IDE with JDK. Once you download it, you do not need to download a separate JDK because it comes together. So once you download it, you you open a new project and you just name it maybe ATM Java project and name it ATM. Okay, so you can look up another tutorial on how to set up NetBeans. Okay, so back to what we're saying. So you call this the name and you call this the password, right? So this is how you can create the design, and inside here you want to call the text here. You can call it maybe say login details and the user's name for your app. Oops, J. Okay, it's highlighting itself. Okay, now I want to say the password. Okay, so we're not going to use this for password because this text field. So there is actually a special field for password, which is the J password field. All right, so now we're going to have a button for submit. That is going to be called a button, and another button for cancel, just in case the user feels like, oh, I'm not submitting. Okay, so we can say, note, if you double click, you get to the page where you can write action for the button. Okay, so that's for your first button. So we're back to the page. So in case you double clicked, just click on here, design. Okay, in case you double click like I just did again, just click on design. So let's call this second one cancel. Right, so this is for the login page. Now let's create something up here. Let's call it ATM. Let's say ATM. I think that's okay. Now we're going to enlarge this. Hold on, I'm going to show you how you can edit it. So let's come here. This is where you actually see font. Okay, now we can select any font for choosing, and let's go with something bit bold. Let's do italics, and we can increase the size to 36. Okay, and take it here, reduce this, right? Okay, so that's it. So this is your dashboard or your login design. Okay, so I've already done a design before, so I'm just showing you how you could achieve this using your NetBeans JPanel. So now note, this is the source code where you can give actions to this button. This is it, and this is it. So this is where I was talking about the JWT event for each button. Okay, so now let's design a, so don't worry about this, you're going to see it in our code already in IntelliJ. So let's create another J panel in our ATM, a J panel form. Okay, now we're going to call this a dashboard. Right, so this J panel is going to be for the ATM. So initially we want to have a panel, or we could just use the panel directly. So I could just change this background to white again. Okay, now this panel I'm going to change, sorry, I don't need this panel, so let's delete this. Okay, so I need a text field greeting the user saying welcome Jite. Okay, so we're going to have something like this. Then we're going to have a panel right here that is going to cover the user's name, um user's account details, and everything. Then we're going to be having buttons for withdraw, um deposit, and check balance. Okay, so this is basically how we could use NetBeans to achieve. And if you come to the source code, you can see each and every design right here. Okay, so this was how I got my designs and the exact dimensions on how to set it, or where to write which and where not to write which. Okay, so you don't have to stress yourself about how do I design this, or how do I read the entire docs of jQuery or jPanel to be able to work with jPanels from the Java Swing class. Okay, so you can just use NetBeans for your design. So the jPanel feature in NetBeans is really, really wonderful if you're going to be coding with Java, or you can even decide to just use NetBeans in general and not use IntelliJ because of the jPanel feature. But IntelliJ is still a very good IDE, especially if you're a beginner, because it offers less stress and actually helps beginners more. Okay, so going back to our IntelliJ, after seeing how we achieve this entire design using the J panel, you can see right here, we're able to achieve that entire design. Okay, so we're able to achieve this entire design code. Okay, so all this many stuff, we're able to achieve it using the J panel. Now note, like I said earlier, in the J panel, when we're in NetBeans, I told you we're going to have a event listener for the buttons. Okay, so this is the event listener as you are seeing here. So this part is the part I'm going to explain well. So the first part is your button deposit BTN. Okay, so what we're doing here is we've added an action listener, meaning if you click on the deposit button in simple terms, add action listener, meaning when you click on that button called deposit, which is this button right here. So it's like when you do jQuery, sorry, when you do vanilla JavaScript. Okay, when after you create the elements using your HTML, then you use JavaScript to highlight them. Okay, that is what we did here. So we called one of the button deposit, does just that they are classes, and now we're creating methods and passing the names that are going to be in these buttons. Okay, let me search for them. Okay, so you're saying label. Okay, so we're passing in the labels now for them. All right, so don't worry about those things. You can always use jpanel, sorry, in NetBeans to achieve it, or you can also use some other website to help you bring out design, or you can even use AI to generate a design for you. Then you work on the logic on how the design is going to work. But I strongly recommend you using NetBeans since it already handles the design. So based on you're going from a beginner level to a professional level, you can always employ the IDE NetBeans for your designs and just bring them over here to code for a more faster and smoother interface. Okay, so now if you check in here, we've added the action event listener with this parameter, and now we're creating a method inside, and we're saying the action performed should be a string with the word pin. So we are declaring the variable type. Okay, so saying enter your pin. So this is an input dialog. So when an input dialog is what you can put your text. So when the user enters his pin, it gets saved to this variable named pin. Notice we're collecting it as string. Okay, so since we are collecting it as string and not an integer, maybe the pin is 1 to 3, but we're collecting it as string, which is not really good, but it's just for an example. So you can just say yeah, it should be an integer, and what you do here is you compare it as in form of numbers. Okay, but let's go back to a string, right? So we don't have errors using this equals class or method. So now we're now saying if the pin is not equal to null, which means where the user is supposed to enter pin, if it's not empty, and then the pin is equal to 123, which is the password, the default password for the user, then string blah 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 enter amount to deposit. Okay, this is for the deposit button. Okay, so each user the deposit pin is 123. So if the user's pin is equal to that is not null and is equal to 123, then the user will be allowed to enter a deposit in an input dialog. All right, so this is the method that helps to increase the user's balance. So once again, we put it in a try catch in case there is any error. Now we say double amount. We created a variable called with a double type, um, you know. So the name of the variable is amount, and now we are passing this amount string, which is enter the amount you want to deposit that is in string. We're now passing it to become a double. So previous episode we discussed how to pass strings to either integers or double. Okay, so to convert strings to integers or double, like here you can see we have a string here. So to convert something like maybe enter the amount, the users can just write 1000, so the computer sees it in strings like this. Okay, so now we're telling the computer to pass this from string to a double. So that is what you are seeing here. So this is the short method for doing that. Okay, so now we're saying if the amount is greater than 0, then we're going to update the history page in the dashboard by the user's amount, else we're going to say invalid amount. Also, we're going to credit the user the amount of money. Then we're going to show, if it doesn't work, then we show a dialog message saying the amount is invalid because you can't add what's -1 to your account. Okay, so it must be greater than 0. So the next one is the cache block that says number format exception. So meaning you didn't enter a valid number. Maybe you entered A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay, that is a letter and not a number. So we ensure to handle that exception too, so that your code doesn't break, because you don't want a user using an ATM and he randomly puts in something and it breaks the ATM machine. Okay, then there's another else after we've checked if this user is equal to the password is equal to the actual password. So if it's not equal, we show incorrect pin. So that is for the deposit. So the same thing is for the withdrawal, the same pin 123, and this is everything, the same logic in the deposit. So first of all, we create a variable named pin, tell the user to enter the pin and we'll store it to this variable pin as a string. Then we compare if the pin is not null and if the pin is equal to 123. Then we create a string called amount str, which is the amount string. I will tell the user to enter the amount to withdraw. Note we are saving this in a string format. Right? So next we're telling the PC to try and catch, meaning we want to catch every possible error that will come out from this. So we're saying try double amount equals double dot pass amount, which is this amount str. The next thing is if the, meaning we are changing this amount str to a double number instead of a string that is was initially. Then we are saying if amount is greater than 0 and the user dot withdraw has the amount there, then update the dashboard. Update dashboard is a function above. Okay, then we're saying append center text, which is the same thing for the history, right? Then else we're saying insufficient balance or invalid whatever pin. Then we can say else the number format exception, which is please enter a valid number, and we can actually finally say incorrect pin if it doesn't check out in the first place. Okay, so that's for the withdrawal. Now the balance btn is for us to be able to check our balance. So first thing is saying action performed is to append center text, your balance is okay. So that is just a simple stuff, so it's no big deal. Right, so the next one is for the logout button, which is just to save the user. So we're going to save whatever the user has done. Maybe he made a deposit or he made a withdrawal, so we're going to save it. So maybe he enters the account as 1,000 and maybe made a withdrawal of 100, so it doesn't come back and see 1,000 there. It reflects 900 as his balance. Then we tell the user he has been logged out successfully. Then we dispose the page and we go back to the login screen. Okay, then these are all here for the private functions to update the balance label. So all these are what we called here initially. When you see update dashboard, then you see update dashboard here, and you see this one. So there were actually this text set center text, which is this function right here. Set where is it? Set center text. Where is it? Okay, append center text, and this one was here. Okay, so these are actually the definitions here. So this one is to try and catch too. So it's like doing HTML and CSS JavaScript, sorry. So it's just like creating a function and just appending the value of the string to the the space in the UI. Okay, so enough talking, and all this could be achieved right in your NetBeans, this entire design. So this whole design right here down to these other ones right here, these private functions for all these are all under abstraction. So these are all abstract classes, abstract methods, sorry. So they are all private. Note we said abstract methods allows us to, a toy has already been made, so you don't see the wires, you don't see how the toy is being wired, and etc. You just click on the button and it begins to work. So these are the abstract methods. So like I said before, the user comes, he clicks on this button, deposit button. He doesn't know how the money gets removed and how the text for the history gets appended, and he just sees everything. So let's run the initial code and let's see how it runs. On it, you should see it opens up like this. So this is the name of the app, and this is the login screen. Right, so you can call it whatever name. Let's say Mark, and let's say the password is 123 4, and that's it. So when you log in, you can see welcome Mark, welcome to your ATM Mark. So this was actually achieved using the get username. I'm passing the user parameter from this function right here. So it was achieved using this, where is it? Okay, get username. Okay, so notice at the beginning we declared a private function called user from the user account file, which actually has getters for getting username, password, and the balance. So the initial balance is 0.0, which you can see right here, and the name is actually there. Now if you check again, you can see this is the name of the title right here. Okay, so now also this other text, okay, this one was achieve.get balance, which is this balance right here. Right, so if I also check again, you will see okay, what else again? Okay, nothing else. Okay, so okay, here too it's also achieved using the get username, which is this. So no matter who is logged in, if I should create another account called let's say Luke, and you see it's dynamic. Okay, so here carries Luke and here carries Luke, because we're actually getting it from our txmd that file from here. Okay, so now if you see what else again, okay, now you can see the button, deposit button, withdraw button, show balance, and logout. So remember I talked about abstraction earlier. So abstraction means these things work without knowing how they work. So like the toy illustration I gave earlier, if you have a toy, a child doesn't look at how the toy works. Instead, he actually sees if you press the button, the toy does this. So now if you look at this, we have this deposit btn. Now all these are what the deposit btn do, the event listener to know the action which the button performs. So once I press the button, notice what would happen. So if I press the button, the first line of code runs, which is enter your pin. Okay, so this is actually called a J option pin dot show input dialog. Input dialog means I can put in something. Note the pin is 1 to 3. If you check here, it says if the pin which has been saved as a string is not null and is equal to 1 to 3, tell the user to enter amount to deposit, and then the user.amount, the user's balance becomes updated, which is this update dashboard. Now if you come, that is actually an abstract method, because what it actually does is the balance label, which is just this label right here, this label here, this function for get user balance. Get balance is what displays the user's balance right there. Okay, so now by updating that label, which is just an ordinary label, not here, okay, so we're setting the text to using naira user.get balance, which is the latest balance that has just been updated. All right, so that is what you see now. So let's put in 1,000, and now you see it gets updated to 1,000. Now there's another part of this that says else, or let's go with this catch. So note this code won't break. So if I should write my password is this, you see, incorrect pin. So we fall into this block, which is this block right here that says if the pin is not equal to 1 to 3, else is an incorrect pin. Right, so here is something here's another one for this number format exception. So if I click on OK and I put in -11, see, invalid amount. That was what we actually checked right here, that says invalid amount, because it's actually lesser, is not greater than 0 but lesser. -11 is lesser than 0. Okay, so let's go for the withdraw button. It's the same thing. So if the pin is not equal to 1 to 3, then it checks if the amount is greater than the user's amount. So if I want to withdraw, my account is reading 1,000 right now. So if I want to withdraw 1 2 3 and I say 1 million, okay, see, insufficient balance or invalid amount. Now if you see, that is the first thing we handled here. That if the user's amount is greater than 0 and the user does withdraw, then if this condition doesn't check out, then we say invalid balance or invalid amount, sufficient balance, sorry. Okay, so it's almost the same thing as the deposit. All right, also we call on the update dashboard function that just updates this label. So if we say we withdrew maybe $3, now we'll get updates to our dashboard. Also we get updates to this, which is our something like transaction history. That is what you've seen, append center text right there. So what we're saying is withdrew naira plus amount, and if you check withdrew naira plus amount, and for the deposit naira plus amount, deposited naira plus amount. Okay, so that is what we're actually doing right here, append center text. So what is actually going on here is the styling for this thing, okay, how they appeared centered and everything. So you can actually achieve that using your JPanel and just make it as a method so that it gets called over and over again and not used once. So if you remember the lesson on methods, you'll be able to understand what I mean by it gets called over and over and over again. Okay, so next up is this button for show balance. Okay, so for this we just do the, where is it? Okay, we say, okay, yeah, this is it, show balance. Okay, so your balance is this. So what we just do here is to append center text. We're using the same abstract method again, which is private, so we're calling it again to use the same styling and everything, but this time you should say your balance is this dot get balance, which is what you're seeing right here. Okay, so for the logout, there is something that is going to happen. So when you log out, first of all, it's going to save the current data. Note we had 997, so it has been saved. So if I should log into, which user was I logged in as? I was logged in as, I think, I can't remember again. Luke, let's go with Luke. I think it should be Luke. And let's say 1 2 3 4. Okay, that was Luke. So 997 naira. Then we dispose. If you notice, if we log out, this screen gets disposed. Immediately I click on OK, I will get back to the login screen, just like an ATM, okay, which is the new login screen, right? So this is everything we have learned and we have applied in this Capstone project. So we've applied the use of abstraction, we've applied the use of encapsulation in this case, and we have applied the use of constructors, we've applied the use of methods, we've applied the use of even JFrames on how to achieve this using your NetBeans IDE to make designs without necessarily going through the JPanel or JFrames documentation. Okay, you can use NetBeans to achieve each and every one of these designs you are seeing right now on my screen. Okay, also I've gone through how to increase balances and how to reduce balances, and we've also gone through how to read txt files and how to write to txt file, sorry, and how to read txt file. Okay, so we've done how to call your initial screen, which is your login screen. Immediately you click on your main.java. That is why you always see this login screen right here. Then we've also seen how to set a login screen using our NetBeans IDE, and after doing that, we can just copy the design layout and paste it in our IntelliJ, or decide to code with NetBeans. And now we can add the action listener to each of our login screen by declaring what each button would do in the login screen. All right, so this is everything we need to learn from this Capstone project. I hope you're able to put everything you learned together, and if you downloaded the source code, please do well to look at what you've done, or if you coded along with me in the video, I also advise you to download the source code so you can compare what you saw in the video with what you're seeing in your source code. Okay, so this is all from me, and I hope to see you in the next video tutorial series on maybe another programming language like Python, JavaScript, or even Web3 on the Solidity and Web3.js. So I will be very happy to share this knowledge with all of you so that you all can become professional developers out there. The only thing is for you to hit the subscribe button and also leave a like and comment what you want to see next on this channel. So thank you very much from me, and I want to tell you to stay safe till the next tutorial series. Thank you.